It's the bullpen with Adam the Bull. It is a Monday. Yes, Monday. And we are heading towards training camp. Yes, indeed. Hope everybody's having a great day. Hope you all had a fantastic weekend. I know I did, although some interesting stories of what happened to me over the weekend that I will get to you to later in the show. Interesting weekend for the Cleveland Guardians, who split 4 games with the Chicago White Sox. I'll get into that in a little bit. Plus, Collin Sexton, there's a report of a trade offer, well, there's always reports of trade offers, but there's a report of a contract offer to Colin Sexton. We'll get into that. But, of course, we'll begin with the Browns, the latest on Deshaun Watson, and who will be most negatively affected if and when he is suspended, which of his teammates. That and more coming up to start things off next, right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Podcast is not for the faint of heart.
And I do think it's time for the Browns to move on.
It's not for those who ride the fence.
He's proven nothing.
But if you're looking for someone who tells it like it is about Cleveland sports,
everybody does fandom their way.
You've come to the right place.
I don't think he's any good.
It's time for the bullpen with Adam the Bull.
Bow, 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 bow. Bow, bow. All right, it's the bullpen with Adam the Bull. It's a Monday, and I saw an interesting thing in, again, get to the Guardians and the Cavs later, but I saw an interesting little tidbit in my buddy Jason Lloyd's mailbag column this weekend for The Athletic, of course, and I'll read it to you here real quick. He answers a bunch of questions. The whole column is worth reading, but I'm just going to mention one small part of the mailbag that he put out yesterday. So he was asked about, there's been a lot of talk that fans are angry about the Deshaun Watson trade. And, let me move it back a little bit. If you folks know me, and I'm sure most of you that listen have been following me and listening to me for a long time. So you know that I have kind of changed my mind on players with questionable things off the field, right? When the Browns signed Kareem Hunt, and this has nothing to do with it being the Browns or Deshaun Watson. I think most of you know me well enough to know I'm not a homer. Whether it's the Browns, the Bengals, or whatever, I'm going to give you straight how I saw it. I didn't like when the Bengals drafted Joe Mixon. I didn't like when the Browns signed Kareem Hunt. And somewhere in the last, I don't know exactly, I can't pinpoint a moment where it happened, but at some point in the last couple of years, I got to the point where I was like, I'm always getting up on the soapbox because I believed it to run these guys out. And in some cases, we knew exactly what they did. Some we didn't, and I just assumed the worst, right? Which in most cases, when it involves violence against women, the worst is the woman is usually telling the truth. I'm not saying that to say that the women in the Deshaun Watson case are not. I'm just saying that that's the way I always leaned, right? I always leaned that way. And then I started thinking that there's terrible people in all walks of life, right? There's guys that do things. There's a bad guy on every team. And what are we supposed to do? As a member of the media or as just a fan, doesn't matter. Like, what am I supposed to do? I know there's some members of the media here in Cleveland that every time Watson's name gets so worked up and so angry about it, and okay, that's fine. But I notice that those people have been judgy about fans that choose to be happy about Deshaun Watson. And to be fair, I was kind of one of them to some degree. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to convince you that Deshaun Watson has done nothing wrong. I have said consistently it's hard to believe he's completely innocent when there's been 24 charges made. And if nothing else, if absolutely nothing else, Deshaun Watson showed some really, really, really poor judgment in this situation, if nothing else. I could, have my own opinions on certain gray areas in this situation, and I don't think he's completely innocent. But in the end, I don't think there's, I don't, he's going to be back and he's going to play. And I'm not, I always used to get bothered by people that would defend their players when they wouldn't defend them somewhere else. And I don't defend, I don't know what happened with the Deshaun Watson situation. He and the women know. I'm not trying to tell you that I believe he's completely innocent because I don't know. What I'm trying to tell you is that The courts can deal with it. They have, right? They decided, two grand juries decided not to charge him. He settled 20 cases. He has 4 cases outstanding. If he's not going to jail, why should I decide he should not be able to play? We see people in other walks of life, actors, musicians, politicians, police, fire, radio people, who do stupid things, who get in trouble, who do bad things, and they don't necessarily lose their jobs. And if they do, then okay. Like if Deshaun Watson got kicked out of the league, then so be it. If he did something illegal and he gets convicted somehow, I don't know, whatever happens. If he gets kicked out of the league, so I said this for years about Joe Mixon. If he gets kicked out of the league, so be it. But if he doesn't, I'm no longer going to apologize for wanting him to do well or rooting for him, and no fan should either. Steelers fans didn't apologize for that. I think when you go too far and say, "Oh, it's all made up," but I think you got to be careful about that. Just defending a guy blindly because he's on your team. But I think you come to a point where you're like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? He wasn't. They couldn't charge him. Grand jury, no charges. He settled most of the cases. My guess is he'll probably settle the others, but we'll see. So what are we supposed to do? So now it comes down to Deshaun Watson on the field. And a lot of in the past, I talked about how these suspensions, obviously we're still waiting for the suspension, or what I assume will be a suspension. And I mentioned before that in the past, the suspensions have been based on emotion or public perception and not based on information or facts. I think that's going to be different in this case. I think that's good, right? The perception was, the emotion was that, oh my God, how could the Browns do this? Even though there were, a bunch of other teams trying to do the same. And people are going to be angry. And there are Browns fans that are angry that they traded for Deshaun Watson. There's also a lot of Browns fans that are excited they traded for Deshaun Watson. And my argument has been, it's not bad PR to trade for Deshaun Watson. Yeah, there's going to be articles written about it, and Jimmy Haslam's going to be dragged through the mud, deservedly so, as he's done a lot of crappy things. But in the end, that all goes away. How does that negatively affect you? And this idea, this false idea that all these Browns fans are going to run away from the team and not watch and not listen and not go to the games, to me, always seemed like nonsense. And Jason, as I'll circle back to what I read in Jason's mailbag column, he was asked, have the Browns been asked about and or released any data on the extent to which Browns fans have canceled their season tickets as a result of misgivings about the acquisition of Watson? And Jason Lloyd says, it's my understanding they've had far more new orders placed for tickets than they've had cancellations. The cap, then he goes on to talk about some other things, which is not important at the moment. Again, it's a good column. Read the whole thing. It is important, but not to the point of this conversation. So, as I expected, there are more people interested in buying season tickets to the Browns with Deshaun Watson than there are people looking to cancel. Now, we'll see as the season goes, are TV ratings this year worse? Are radio ratings this year worse? I don't know. My guess is no, especially when Deshaun Watson plays, maybe earlier in the year when it's Jacoby Brissett, assuming it is. But there's no doubt in my mind that the small percentage of fans that are not going to watch anymore or not going to listen anymore, not going to talk about the Browns anymore, is so minuscule, it will make no difference. And we all get worked up. How could they do this? The terrible PR. What terrible PR? Is it going to get any worse? I mean, unless new information comes out, the Browns have kind of weathered the storm on this. That's the reality. We could clutch our pearls and get all upset that we want. There's been a lot of misinformation out there. There's people. I have, every time I say something like excited about Deshaun Watson, I get people. Well, what about the rape victims? I'm like, whoa. Deshaun Watson was never accused of rape. In fact, he was never accused of violence, coercion, or force. So, did he do some things that are inappropriate? Seems like it. Should there be a penalty for that? Seems like it. Will he hopefully learn from that? I don't know. I hope so. Does that mean he should never play again? I don't think so, and I don't think the judge is going to see it that way either. Now, I have no idea. I mean, maybe we're completely dumbfounded. Maybe she suspends him for indefinitely or 2 years, and we're all like, what happened? I thought they were, the everything was seeming to be going in one direction, and it changed. I don't know. But don't apologize, and don't listen to any bogus narratives that people are going to stop watching or listening. And if you choose to, if you're listening to this podcast or you have a cousin or a friend or a wife or a brother or whoever who has decided, I don't like the accusations against Watson and I'm not going to root for the Browns anymore, I'm not going to watch, then that's their prerogative. I'm not going to call somebody stupid for that. In most cases, I think the people that say that are either being disingenuous or maybe they believe it now, but if the team's playing well, they'll come around. That's my opinion on it. But ultimately, I'm not going to call somebody stupid or, rip anybody that doesn't want to pay attention to the team anymore. That's your prerogative. And to me, the same thing should apply the other way. For those fans who have decided they're not watching the Browns anymore, they're disgusted by the situation, and they're done, I would say to them, well, why weren't you done with Kareem Hunt or an owner who's, has a lot of alleged crimes and was raided by the FBI? Why weren't you done then? But okay, this is the final straw. Everybody has their own final straw. That's fine. But to me, just like I shouldn't rip you for leaving the team now, you shouldn't rip me or any other fan, really the fans, forget me, for, being excited or wanting to stay with the team. Now, if somebody defends Deshaun Watson and goes too far, maybe, he did nothing wrong, it's all a hoax. Well, you don't know that. That's unfair. But it's also unfair to start accusing him of things he hasn't even been charged with or accused of, like rape, which was ridiculous. The people are haphazardly throwing that out there. People are haphazardly throwing 66 cases out there. Right now, there's 4 cases, folks. 4. That's all the NFL is judging him on, which is very similar to what they were judging Ben Roethlisberger on. And Ben Roethlisberger, unlike Deshaun Watson, was accused of rape. And he only got 6 games, and that was cut down to 4. And that was based on emotion. We don't know how much fact it was based on. We know this time, when Judge Robinson rules, I can't say we know for sure, but I think we can confidently say that she is making her determination based on information, the facts that she's collected, the information that she's collected. Not based on PR, on what's good for the Shield, or her emotions based on the scariness of the charges. She's got to determine what happened and what kind of penalty there should be for what she believes happened in this situation. Not an easy task, but she's as qualified as any, and certainly more qualified than us, you, me, and everybody else out there, and certainly more qualified than the powers that be in the National Football League. All right, folks. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league: baseball, football, basketball, hockey, golf, esports, even combat sports. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for everything you need. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Take a quick break. Come back. I'm going to switch gears, talk about the Guardians' first series in this big road trip after the All-Star break. That is next right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull. All right, welcome back. So last week I talked about this huge road trip that the Guardians had to start the second half of the season. Guardians have now, after this 4-game series over the weekend, including the doubleheader on Saturday, have played 94 games, which means they have 68 games to go. So we're heading down the home stretch. You got about 2 months left of the season. The Guardians won the first 2 against the White Sox, 8-2 and 7-4. Lost the nightcap of the doubleheader. Were down, came back, and then lost 5-4. And then they lost on Sunday by a score of 6-3. The Guardians will now go to Boston for 4. Boston coming off a series against Toronto where they got destroyed, gave up 28 runs. I think it was, I don't know if it was Friday or Saturday. I can't remember now. Then they go to Tampa Bay for a 3-game series. Guardians, at the moment, are 3 games out of first behind the Twins, 1 game up on the White Sox for second. They are 2 games out in the wild card. And I said last week that I think the Guardians' only realistic path to the playoffs is through the division. I still believe that, even though technically they're closer. I mean, they're the Mariners are the 3rd wild card team right now. Guardians are 2 back of them. The Twins are the division leaders. The Guardians are 3 back of them. So maybe it's toss up between the two. The Mariners, who won 14 in a row before the break, have lost 3 in a row since the break. I still expect the Boston to make a run here. Obviously, they had a terrible weekend. They lost 5 in a row. They lost 4 over the weekend, or 3 over the weekend. And obviously, they're playing each other here. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they will get into the wild card mix. They're not really too far behind any of the wild card teams. I mean, Toronto's the first wild card, and the Guardians are only 4 games back of them. They've been hot, obviously, after they were the opposite end of the smoking of Boston this weekend. They've won 6 in a row now, and they by far have the best run differential of the wild card contenders. But I still think when it's all said and done, it will come down to the division and whether the Guardians are aggressive. And remember, we are next week. Next Monday is the trade deadline. And so everything's been pretty quiet. We've seen a few smaller deals. Saw Daniel Vogelbach get traded over the weekend, or maybe it was Friday now, I can't remember. But he gets traded from the Pirates to the Mets. There are a number of teams completely out of it, right? Kansas City, Detroit, Oakland, the Angels, although they're not going to trade Ohtani. The Rangers are out of it. The Nationals are out of it. Probably Miami. The Pirates, the Cubs, the Reds, the Diamondbacks, the Rockies. These teams are all out of it. So those are the teams to look for in terms of buying. The question is, will the Guardians be aggressive? They're going to have to open up some 40-man roster spots. They're very much in the playoff mix. I said last week the team needed to show the front office that they were serious contenders. It would have been really nice after winning the first 2 to at least take 3 of 4 against the White Sox. Unfortunately, they lose the nightcap, as I mentioned, and then lost the Sunday game. And so, and by the way, in that game, Shane Bieber's been really good lately. He did not look good at all. Only 4 strikeouts in 6 innings. It was quite concerning. Concerning is a little strong. But he was getting hit pretty hard there early in the game, and obviously they scored the 5 runs. And he pitched. He settled down after that. But you can't. When you have an offense that's been up and down, obviously, and you're facing Dylan Cease, who's been one of the best pitchers in baseball, you can't afford for your ace to. And I guess Tristan McKenzie's really been their ace, but you can't afford to have Bieber give up 5 runs in the second inning. That was just a killer. They had a shot to get back in it. Franmil hit a home run, and they really need to get him going. Man, they could use a hot second half. Now, I'm being, I've been saying Franmil's got to get going in the second half. Part of it is selfish. I want him to get it going because I just traded it for him this weekend in my fantasy league. I actually traded a White Sox for a Guardian. I traded Michael Kopech for Franmil Reyes. So I want him selfishly, but also unselfishly for the team. I want him to get going, and I think they need him. He got 2 hits on Sunday and hit the home run. So, again, it was a one-sided game at the time, but they need Ramirez, Reyes to get hot together. Rosario's playing well, had a big game big day in the doubleheader, had another 2 hits yesterday. But we'll see. This Boston series coming up, obviously big. Boston needs it bad because they're in if either team gets swept in this 4-game series, they are in big trouble. Like either way, if this series is dominated. And the Red Sox pitching hasn't been great. Chris Sale came off the injured list, and now he's back on. They'll face Nick Pivetta on today. Nick Pivetta has been pretty good for them against Plesac. And anyway, so we'll see. I don't know who's starting Tuesday yet. I don't know if the Guardians have announced their starting pitcher for Tuesday's game. It'll be Winkowski coming off the COVID list for the Red Sox on Tuesday. Quantrill against Nate Eovaldi on Wednesday, and Tristan McKenzie against Cutter Crawford, which is a great name for a baseball player. Cutter Crawford, love it. Sky Bolt is another player in baseball right now. Another great baseball name. It really is. All right, folks. Got to tell you that our today's episode of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull is brought to you by Bet Online. Bet Online has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Bet Online, where the game starts. We will not start, but we will continue this edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull when I come back. I got a few more thoughts on some NFL things. Plus, I got to get to the Cavaliers and Colin Sexton. There was a report over the weekend on what the Cavaliers have offered Colin Sexton on a new contract. We'll talk about that coming up next in the Bullpen with Adam the Bull. Excuse me, I'm a little parched. All right. So, there was a report this weekend about Colin Sexton, and reportedly, let me just bring this up so I can give due credit. I can't remember now if it was my man Fedor that had this first, so I want to properly give credit on this story. Colin Sexton, of course, is a free agent. However, the Cavs can match any contract offer. And clearly nobody's made an offer yet because we'd know about it and we'd be finding out if they were matching. And it doesn't seem like there's much of a chance of Colin Sexton getting a major offer from somewhere else. And it was Chris. I thought it was. I just wanted to confirm that. But according to Chris Fedor, Cleveland Plain Dealer, talks between the Cavs and free agent Colin Sexton remain at a standstill. Cleveland extended a qualifying offer to Sexton just before the start of free agency, a move that allowed the franchise to match any offer sheet that the guard would sign. Sexton is reported looking for, quote, starting guard money, but the market is largely dried up. And then there was another report over the weekend that Colin Sexton was offered, let me give you the numbers here. I know I have it somewhere. Okay, a 3-year, $40 million deal. Now, at that price, I mean, that seems fairly reasonable. That's just under $17 million a year. No, it's actually less than that. What am I talking about? That's just over $13 million. So it's $13.33 million. Now, that's less than he wants. But what options does Colin Sexton have right now? If I'm the Cavs and I'm looking at this situation, not to be too harsh, but I'm saying to Colin Sexton, hey, 3 years, 40, take it or leave it. I'm not going higher than that because nobody else is offering him anything. And he is a guy who I think he thinks he's better than he is. Now, we don't know yet what Colin Sexton is on this team because obviously he has missed time. He missed most of last season. And he seemed to be a great teammate last year, but the guy wants to get paid big-time money, and I just don't think that that's going to happen. I don't see it. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe somebody will come out of left field and offer him a ton of money, but at this point, I find that hard to believe. And I think if you're the Cavaliers, it's a tricky spot because, you don't want to have a bad relationship with a player on your team, but if I'm the Cavaliers, that's it. I'm not going. I mean, I thought if they were going to re-sign him, it would cost them more than that. And I don't know, who knows for sure where that number is from. I was thinking, maybe $51 million but if they can get him 3 years, $40 million, then yeah, I mean that's a very reasonable price for a guy. And I think Colin Sexton has got to accept a role. If Colin Sexton takes this contract and accepts a role as a sixth man. If he plays that role, if he's an elite sixth man over the next 3 years, first of all, made $40 million over 3 years. You're set for life. Your family's set for life. But if he does that, if he stays healthy and excels in a six-man role, which I think, and a lot of other people think he can excel in a six-man role, coming off the bench, instant offense, and that's his thing, right? He's not much of a passer. He's not a defensive player. He's not a rebounder. He has one talent in the game. And he's great. He's a great scorer. He's a maybe great's a little strong, but he's a very good scorer. And he can be a really excellent, I think, six-man, like a top six-man in the league. And if he signs this reasonable deal, works hard, is part of the team, continues to be a great teammate, and excels in that role, then in 3 years he's still going to be pretty young, and somebody will pay him even more money than that. I think that's the best course of action, and it may be his only choice, because I find it hard to believe anybody's going to... Now, maybe somebody will offer him more than that, but he's not going to get paid. I could certainly be wrong, but I find it really hard to believe that he is going to get starters type of money. I just can't see that happening. I can't see why anybody would possibly consider paying him starting guard money. I think if that was going to happen, it probably would have happened already. And it hasn't. All right, a couple other things I wanted to hit on. Very sad news from the NFL. Texans rookie wide receiver John Mechie III was diagnosed with acute promyelocytic leukemia. Now, many of you know my wife was diagnosed with leukemia. She's been in treatment now since November of 2020 and has about another 8-9 months of treatment left. She has thankfully hit all the milestones, and the doctors are extremely optimistic about her recovery. She has a different type of leukemia than he has, APL. My wife has what's called T-cell ALL leukemia. But, you know, I could feel the pain of his family members because I know what I've been through. And so I wish nothing but the best for John Mechie. Certainly for a young man, this is horrible. So I just wanted to bring it up because, you know, it really, I'm sure everybody feels it, but I can certainly feel the pain of getting that diagnosis as my wife got and dealing with the ramifications that we still are to this day. So all the best to he and his family. Obviously, that's really sad news. Hopefully he will have a great recovery and he'll be okay. Another thing I wanted to hit on a much lighter note, fantasy football is right around the corner. We're going to be talking fantasy football on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. I will be talking fantasy football on right here in the podcast. I love fantasy football, and if you have fantasy football questions, tweet them at me anytime, and I'll take some of the good ones and I'll answer them on the air. I'm going to do this every week starting in August. Starting when I come back from my vacation the second week of August. So whenever you have a fantasy football question, just send them my way. And finally, we're going to talk more about this on the show this week, but I'm very excited. The Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show is going to be doing a special broadcast. So we're on, obviously, live if you watch the show 11 to 1 every weekday, but we are going to be joining you at the 2-minute warning of every Browns game. Myself, G, and Jay will come on live. We're going to live stream. We're going to join you for the 2-minute warning, and then we'll stick around probably till a half hour, 45 minutes after the game, roughly, give or take. We'll probably do an hour total, starting at the 2-minute warning, and we're going to do it for every game. And the three of us will be on most. I'm going to miss one Sunday, but besides that, I'll be on every week. And so more coming up about that. Make sure you're watching. Make sure, please, that you've subscribed. We have less than 500 subscribers we need to get to. We're about 500 away from our goal at the end of the month. So please get us there in the next week. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. That's where you can find the Bullpen with Adam the Bull podcast there as well. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, at Adam the Bull. There it is, right there. Check out my Cameo. Check out my website, adamthebull.com. And so there you go. Let me take that off. All right. Still a lot to do. It's going to be a fun Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show on Monday. J and G are off, but we got some good things we're going to be talking about, and Tim Couch will join us, of course. I'll be back on the podcast Tuesday. Where else but right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull. Have a great day, everybody.